If you would like to submit a story, topic, or have any other inquiries, please email submit@SkeebaNewsNation.com. Also, you can email Jeremiah Skiba personally at jeremiah@SkeebaNewsNation.com. Also, email Jake personally at jake@SkeebaNewsNation.com. If you want to write us a letter, send us something, help support us, or just say hi, please send your letter to Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560-271, The Colony, Texas 75056. If you write us a letter, I'll do my best to write you back. Hey, Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Skiba News Nation. If you want to help support us, please consider becoming a Patreon, where you will get exclusive content, shoutouts, and much more. And you can also support our channel by getting yourself some new Skiba News Nation merch. Thank you for coming on this journey with us as we continue to stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation. Also, you can listen to Skiba News Nation podcast on your favorite podcast platform.
Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you again for joining us in live broadcast. I'm your host Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And as always, it's a great honor and a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm excited to have a couple of friends that joined me at the Sacred Word Revealed Conference, both Jeremiah Skiba and Jake Grant. Jeremiah, are you there, brother?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you loud and clear, and thanks for taking the time to join us this evening. Jake?
Yes, I'm here. Great to be here, Zen.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate both of you joining me for this broadcast, and I'm looking forward to talking and, just reminiscing, covering what we were able to get together and experience just a couple of weeks ago. I mean, it was an awesome experience and definitely memorable. But before we move forward, I want to give you guys a chance to speak about your radio shows and the work that you are doing now. Jeremiah, if you would, can you talk about the broadcast, the timing, and also the book that you wrote?
Yeah, sure. Well, when they took my dad's life, the hospital system, in my opinion, took his life, I decided that I didn't want his voice to die. So I decided, I'll stop doing what I'm doing, like musically, and I would just create something like a new show for new people. And so I asked Jake if he would be my co-host, and so we started a show called Skiba News Nation. And Jake, can you kind of describe a little bit more about what Skiba News Nation is?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity for Jeremiah to kind of step into Rob's big boots, so to speak. It's kind of covering current news topics and going into the variety of deceptions in the world today. I do a news segment, and Jeremiah does a historical segment where he goes into conspiracies of the past and various topics. And we have Opa, who's the producer of the show, in studio there with Jeremiah, and we kind of bring some levity to it, some humor, and he's got a little kind of like a news clipping jokes segment, and then we cover a bunch of memes and try to keep it lighthearted, because with all the doom and gloom in the world today, it's important to kind of bring some lightheartedness to some of the topics that we cover. But really, we've had a great time doing it, Jeremiah.
And it's cool because we're reaching the generation that my dad always wanted to reach, and that's a blessing to me that we're able to do that.
Well, I think it's awesome that, you are picking up, and not just, not that you're trying to fill Rob's shoes, but that you are, picking up the mantle and continuing with the work, and you're creating your own voice. And, Jake has been part of this movement, the alternative truth movement, for a long time. So I think it's awesome that you guys have teamed up and with the other individual who's helping you with the broadcast. Definitely looking forward to checking out your shows and seeing what it's all about. And I fully agree with you, Jake. We gotta keep humor and see the light-sidedness of things because it can get heavy. It can be overwhelming. Just coming to truth. For especially for those that have no idea about the New World Order and what they're about and the kind of things that they've had planned for a long time. Some serious stuff, and definitely your generation. You guys are younger than me, and I definitely think that the youth, they're going to be the mantle carriers as well, and they need to have guidance and direction. And it's awesome that you guys are stepping up to do that, to be the watchmen for this upcoming generation. And I know both of you are blessed in discernment and have been, guided to the truth in many ways as well. And certainly we need those kind of voices out there because we are the few, the elect, in my opinion. And with the gathering that we had, there's a family vibe to the community. And certainly I was blessed and honored to be able to do shows with Rob for the time that we did. He was an incredible person and somebody that allowed me to speak and share the things that I'd come to know, even though, a lot of things that I speak about are controversial. He certainly was as well and was not afraid to back off when it came to investigating truth and looking at it with an open mind and then reporting on the things that he discovered. And for that, both of us were greatly hated in the alternative truth movement, but I had great respect for the work that he did. And when we came together to share and discern together, it was most certainly spirit led, and we would feed off each other and in doing and bringing forth the things that we had learned. And I think that it will be the same for both of you. And so, yeah, looking forward to the growth of your shows and all the things that you guys are going to get into. But you said that you were involved in music and doing things of that nature. I know Jake is as well. Can you talk a little bit about that, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I was actually starting to make it in the music industry. I had done several tours and played at South by Southwest. They call it the biggest
Awesome, man.
music festival in the
That's
world,
awesome.
but they all say that. But yeah, that's how I started. And then once my dad was in the hospital, and then they killed him.
Yeah.
I decided just, this is more important. This is way more important than what I'm doing now. And so that's when we started this. That's when I wrote my book. Never got to say goodbye because the hospital prevented me from going in there. They let my mom in after I think 20 days. And I think you had her on, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was able to talk about her book. And
Right.
it's just so sick what they're doing to people there. And we just, I mean, I just want to expose everything, and I don't care if people like me or hate me. I am who I am. And
Right.
that's how my dad was.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, are you guys going to do any kind of musical collaboration? Because, music is another powerful medium. And for you to have that skill set, I know that you were able to, to set up an impromptu beat for Justin in one of his poems, and that you guys did were able to come forth and do a rap, and I thought it was awesome. But is that something you guys plan on doing as well?
I'll go ahead
Maybe,
and let Jake answer that one.
yeah, Jake?
Yeah, we actually just recently threw together and published a new song. If you guys were interested, we could even send it over to you if you'd want to listen to it or share
Yeah,
with your
certainly.
listeners.
Yeah.
But while I get that ready, we we both have that musical inclination. I think it's because we see that there's certain barriers that can be breached that really preaching at people can't get past, right? I
Right.
mean, there's something powerful with music, and that's how I've taken my own musical kind of journey. Is I've realized that there's a lot of areas of people's lives that can be shaken or click with them through music that otherwise they might not resonate with. So
Right.
yeah, we have a new song. It's Quest for Truth, and we're calling our collaboration the Truth Frequency. So
That is cool.
similar to the radio station, but it's the musical group, Jeremiah and Jake Grant.
Yeah.
And we let the fans pick it, the people that view our show. So they pick Truth Frequency, and it actually features my dad, which is awesome. So,
Right on. Well, I was gonna say, if there was a way that you could play it and share it here, I'd be most certainly down for listening to it and letting everybody hear it. But I don't know. I myself don't even know how to add clips to this particular medium. Jake, do you know how to do that?
Let me see here. I think I might be able to share
Okay, that would be
the
great.
audio. Just
Cool.
give me a moment, and if you guys hear something, let me know.
Yeah, no worries. That's awesome. Well, in the interim, while he gets set up, I think here we're gonna go.
We are living in a sea of lies.
Can you guys hear that?
Yeah. Play
Oh,
it.
okay. All right then. Well,
Cool.
here's the song Jeremiah and I.
We are living in a sea of lies.
Nice.
I don't care what it costs. I want to know what the truth is. Whether you like me, whether you agree with me or not, at least you can respect the fact that he's on a quest for truth. He's on a quest for truth.
What does it mean to be a stranger in the world that you live? Wicked men will not do you favors in the knowledge that they give.
I'm a truth seeker, that's what I am. I see through the scan from the moon landings to 9/11, true shape of the earth. Yeah, we all know it's a flat land. I see the signs in the sky as if I was Batman.
These are lies that are starting to sprout. You'll become your own god or you will go straight to hell. Human ascension that's destined to fail. Many know I claim to be the light. The blind leading the blind are always destined to find a god less poison, indoctrinated light. I will continue towards the truth, forever on the quest, nothing left to lose. I will continue towards the truth, forever on the quest, nothing left to lose.
We dive into topics others won't touch. We self-educate down the rabbit hole. It's never too much. The more we uncover, it will never be quite enough. We're on the quest for truth, so please come along with us.
Family will turn against family. May the Most High forgive them for what they can see. Cognitive dissonance is removed painfully. As you awake, you will find the truth is more beautiful than taking time, than taking time.
Yeah, we're on the quest for truth. I said we're on the quest for truth. Yeah, we're on the quest for truth. Let's stay on the quest for truth.
Awesome. I love it, man. That was great. And we were talking about as far as music being a medium to bridge the gap and to reach, the younger generation. Definitely, that's one of the reasons why I love Destiny Lab and their music, because they're able to appeal. They one of the only Christian hip hop bands that I know of, and so yeah, that's great, man. I really loved it. I thought it was awesome. So I'm looking forward to more music and album or whatever you guys end up doing. But for sure, we'll most certainly support you in your endeavor and turn the listening audience on to whatever else you guys do. That was awesome.
Thank you so much. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah, no worries at all. But before we move in, I just did want to ask both of you guys what you thought about the conference and what you thought about, the community getting together and having the ability to share and discuss and do these kind of things together.
Well, this was
Uh,
my first conference, and I thought it was amazing. The it was a big family, and it was so humbling to see how many people actually loved my dad as much as our family did. Like they saw him as their family as well. And it made me emotional several times just to hear people's stories about him that I had never heard before, and watching my mom get up there first time speaking publicly was I was so in awe that she was able to do that because
right.
I mean she's never been a public speaker, but she did a great job, and I was so
Amazing.
happy for her.
Yeah, she really did. I was blown away by her comfort level. She had a message to bring, to share, and she did that with just eloquence. So I was very impressed in her comfort and her ability to, deliver in the way natural. And so, yeah, I was amazed. Jake, did you want to share your thoughts on the
Oh
conference?
yeah, it was a lot of the times it's like old friends getting together again,
Right.
and it's really beautiful seeing so many different perspectives come together under one roof. Especially in this type of community, you have so many people that are invested in so many topics that oftentimes individually we can kind of drop the ball when it comes to researching one specific area or another. But when we get together with all these different minds, we all get to share what we're most interested in, and it kind of gets to turn the light on for our friends and stuff that we haven't seen for a while on like, hey, you should look into this or you should look into that. And I think that's what's so valuable about the conference is you get so many different people that are all pursuing after truth in their own unique way. And when you get them all under that same building together, then it's pretty beautiful what happens and the conversations that come out of that.
Yeah, I fully agree, and very, very well said. And that is the beautiful thing, because we have a lot of listeners, and even the chat room, as they're listening now, the fellowship that they share, the community that's developed around both. Even with your dad's show on Truth Frequency, we would alternate, take turns, because I was also on Truth Frequency on Thursday nights. I do a show, Secrets Revealed, and so we would go back and forth on the Revolutionary Radio broadcast, and then on my show, and there's the community develops and people congregate, but when they're able to come together face to face and put an actual person to the name and to the people that they've been speaking in chat with for so very long, it makes it uniquely special. It's a really beautiful thing, and so that is what the last two conferences, the ability to come together. Even Jake, you were there for the first one as well, and yeah, the ability for us to merge together in a single point, a single time, single space, and to share not only conversation, but to break bread, share meals, pray for each other, hug each other, commune with each other, and even the way that we were able to hold hands and pray and praise and honor the Most High, and it's an incredible thing, the two or three gathered in my name, and how powerful that really is. And then when we went to do the baptism as well, that is an incredible thing as well, for us to gather the sunset, um, and to get into the water and to pray and bless each other. I mean, there is no greater thing. That's the real Great Commission, doing the work, going forth and sharing the gospel, bringing the good news, salvation in and through Christ, and then baptizing each other in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit is a memorable experience. And so, for those of you that were not able to make it, um, I know that the conference is a lot of work for my children, and that they, are doing this really out of the kindness of their heart to bring us all together. But we had thought we probably wouldn't do another one, but it is something that we probably will continue because of the fellowship and the people and the ability for people to be able to share that kind of experience together. We want to extend it to others and allow it to be ongoing. And so it might take a couple years. That was 3 years between the last one and this one, but it is a beautiful thing. But as far as you guys, I want to turn it back over to you and what you're going to be doing. Any other book projects for you, Jeremiah? I know you guys got to be busy with, music and now doing the radio, and you're also going to be following up in Seed, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of people wanted that to continue. That your dad had written this 6-season, 72 pilot series on so many things, so many esoteric aspects in regard to the Nephilim, the giants, um, the Solomon Islands, and all that mystery. And I was blessed to be able to read the script. He had asked me to also advise him and to be part of his writing group, and so I was blessed in that capacity as well. But can you talk about that? What you guys are going to do, how you're going to do it, and if you're needing help, is that something that people can come forth to aid you? Certainly, support you guys financially with your endeavors, but with the skill set, if you need a particular type of people or are looking for a particular type of individual that has certain skills to aid and to help out.
I know the next big project is the second Seed comic book,
Mhm.
which should be really cool. It was almost finished, and we're just putting the finishing touches on it. I don't have an estimated date yet, but I will do my best to finish what he started. I will do
Awesome.
my best to finish Seed in completion. That's my
great.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah, I know that's going to be a lot of work. And my friend Isaac Chavez, he did a comic book and was able to bring it to the conference and to share it, and sold copies of it. And I was well impressed. And again, the technology, even though at some point, the AI and singularity and sentience and all that, I definitely think it's going to be part of Mark of the Beast and the Antichrist, and the rise of the fallen angels to rule over the New World Order. But the skill set and the tools that are available, it makes those kind of things possible. Even for individuals like myself, I was able to use a text to image software to do my PowerPoint and my presentation, and I was so impressed with the kind of images that you could get just from typing a few words and being able to search out esoteric aspects of the scriptures, like I was typing in the beginning, the origin of the angels, things like that, and I would get 4 images returned, and to be able to finally tune and to change and to uh, also bring back other minute aspects and to alter and add to it. It made it really easy. So is that something you guys are going to be utilizing for this, or is it going to be graphic artists in the same way, I bet, as the last comic and the graphic novel?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I do like the quality of like artists, like the actual artists
Right.
doing the art, because I feel like AI is taking away from musicians, it's taking away from
Agreed.
actual artists and stuff. And I know that it's almost done, so we're just trying to find the right time,
Uh-huh.
really. So
Yeah. Jake, did you want to comment?
Yeah, well, while of course I'm just here to help Sheila and Jeremiah keep alive Rob's vision. Personally, I think the most plausible moving forward with the Seed project would probably be like a novelization, using the remaining uh, kind of the remnants of what Rob had already prepared, such as the script, the different things, and that would probably be the best way to get something that could then be depicted visually. Now, Rob had spent countless hours, making notes and storyboards, and he also had the first 5 scripts done for the first couple pilot episodes. So just to say, we're not Rob Skiba, and of course it would have been best if he had been able to do it himself. But I think the passion and desire is there with Jeremiah and Sheila, and I'm here to help as much as I can to not let this vision that he had spent 10 years developing and pouring his life into getting people's attention on. He was so close to making it happen. Just for that to just pass away without it coming to be would be tragic. And so any way we can gather together the remnants of what he left behind and to do it justice and to do it in a way that might not be his pure vision, because we're not him, but to get as close as possible, sharing truth through the medium of entertainment. That would be beautiful if the Most High would bless it and allow it to still to come to pass.
Yeah, and I trust that he will. And a lot of people don't know that Rob, before his passing, he had entered the first and submitted the first episode. Not a lot of people are even aware of that, but had submitted it to a lot of film festivals and um, to different art reviews and won many accolades. I mean, he was won a lot of competitions and film festivals and honorary mentions and also rewards for his endeavors. So he was most certainly well on his way, and I think that the floodgates would have opened with opportunity for continuance and also to follow up on the making up of the rest of the seasons and the episodes and the graphic novels and everything. So I pray that this is that the windows of opportunity, the doorways will open for you guys in continuing with this work, because I agree that this is something that would be a wonderful blessing to the world with regard of showing them truth, how the Bible also connects with mythology and with the esoteric and also the New World Order, because Rob was able to connect the dots and to introduce the bigger picture of how all that came together. That was one of his gifts, and that's why he was all very much sought out as a speaker to headline events and to close events. His rapport with the audience and with communities was unmatchable, in my opinion. And so, he's greatly missed, and it's not like you guys are trying to be him or, again, those are hard shoes to fill. I mean, you're going to have to make your own way and do it in whatever way you can. But yeah, it would be a beautiful thing to see continuance on that project. And the whole theme, a seed, um, that's something that brought us together as well. Because a large majority of my work, especially years ago, uh, the first esoteric truth that I wrote about and was largely condemned and blacklisted was on the enmity between the seed lines, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And for whatever reason, this topic is something that the majority churches and the seminaries and even a lot of alternative truth communities, they do not want to hear about it, do not want to touch it. And yet, in my opinion, it is the skeleton key for unlocking so much that still remains trivial and misconstrued within scripture. And so that was another thing that united both Rob and I in our conviction, is that we were both led to the discernment. And as far as the bloodlines and the war between them, and of course he was initially hesitant in the way that I covered it, but when doing shows together and sharing truth and so much time together, he came to know it in the way that I had been teaching and presenting it, and he stood on it, and I was grateful for that as well, because he was a supporting witness to truth in the way that I had come to understand it. And even though I was criticized and he was criticized, again, both of us were largely hated by the alternative community for the things, especially when we went to flat earth. That was another topic where our journey to awakening meshed us together and brought us together to share this journey and how we came to discernment on that topic as well. And that was so highly controversial. But so yeah, it will be awesome to see, because he incorporates all of that, all the things that he had come to know. It's written into the script. It's brought in the Nephilim, the giants, the Archon invasion, all the things that he wrote about and covered. And so yeah, it would be a beautiful thing with regard to the graphic novel and all that. But let me turn it back over to you, Jeremiah, get you a chance to comment anything that you want to bring up or, talk about. And then we'll go back to Jake, and then we'll continue forward.
Well, I did have a couple of submitted questions for you if you want to answer those for some of our viewers.
Absolutely. That'd be great.
Can you explain what convinced you of serpent seed?
Yeah, absolutely. When I looked into the Hebrew and understood that, the words there, even for seed and also for fruit, they had to do with descendants and bloodlines and longevity. And then when you look at the punishments that are found in Genesis 3, verses 14, 15, and 16, the Lord God is speaking to the serpent, and he says that I will put enmity between thee and the woman. And in the Targum it says between thy son and her sons. And then of course the prophecy of how the seed of the woman would crush the head of the seed of the serpent. Without a doubt, it's speaking about two bloodlines, that there are going to be two lineages. And even Eve being beguiled by the serpent, that word in the Greek is expatio. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, Paul describes how Eve was not a chaste virgin because she was beguiled by the serpent. And that word expatio there is wholly seduced. And when you understand that the only way that a woman can lose her virginity and not be chaste is by being sexually corrupted. And so that's what the scriptures are revealing. And then when they ate this fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they cover their genitals and they hide themselves among the trees in order to, to hide, because they're ashamed and they're embarrassed at what they had done. And then, again, the punishment is that Eve, which her name is Hava in the Hebrew, and it means life giver, that she is now going to bear children. And Adam names her Hava because she is the mother of all the living. And then when you look up the names for the children, interestingly, Abel, his name means breath. And then Cain, he means an acquired possession. And then when he kills his brother Abel, or half brother Abel, then Sheth, his name means compensation, substitution, and so this was what happens, because when he was killed, Sheth was made in the image and the likeness of Adam. But it says that Cain, especially in the Targum, it says in Genesis 4:1, and Adam knew Hava, his who had desired the angel. And this is an older translation than we have in the Greek Septuagint or in the English King James. And then, semicolon, and she bare Cain and said, I have received a man from the angel of the Lord. And then it says in Genesis 4:2, and then she bare from her husband, Adam, Abel. And, that these were fraternal twins. And we call this heteropaternal fecundation. And so, looking at the Hebrew, studying, especially when reading the Aramaic Targum, which dates back to the 4th century BC, and was the scriptures that the Israelites themselves used once they were allowed to return to the Holy Land and to rebuild the temple. And this is like 2 centuries before the Greek Septuagint. Then, without a doubt, I knew. And just the punishments, and then Adam having to work the soil in order to bring forth sustenance, to feed his generations, his progeny, and that Sheth would be the bearer of his descendants, that they were found separated, that in Genesis chapter 4, which again, it is Eve desiring the angel that brings forth Cain. And so his bloodline starts from Samael, who is the angel of death. And their 10 generations are separated from Adam's generations, which begin in Genesis chapter 5. And so the first 10 generations of Cain are listed in Genesis chapter 4. And then when you read in the primary Adamic literature, and I know that I'm being long-winded here, so I won't, I'll cut it short, right after this. But I've written entire books on this subject. We see that even Christ, he mentions in Matthew chapter 13, in the parable of the sower of the kingdom, the tares of the field, he says that the enemy snuck into the garden and sowed the tares, and that this enemy is the devil, and that the devil is the father of the tares, and that they also are called the goats in the scriptures, but they are the seed of the serpent. And so we see also in Isaiah chapter 14 that Yahuwah says, prepare slaughter for his children, because he, and this is Samael, Satan again, he's called an abominable branch. And when you realize that his children are part of the bloodline of humanity, and they are called the seed of the evildoers in that chapter and verse, and that the war is going to be against them. In the parable again of the tares of the field, it says, allow both to grow together until the time of the end. And so we know that these two bloodlines, because a lot of people believe that the flood wiped out the children of Cain. but that is not true. And I show that in my 12th book, The Great Contest, the enmity between the seed lines. And the very last chapter, chapter 19, is on how the seed of Cain survived the flood. But all of that, there's so much more, and I've covered this in hours and hours and hours of shows and written many books about it. But that would be just some of the background information. Last thing is, I do recommend that people check out. Rob hosted a debate between me and Dante Fortson, who wrote a book called The Serpent Seed Debunked. And, of course, I've written a number of different manuscripts on the bloodlines and the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And hosting that debate, I was able to really help Rob to understand and to make sense of this particular issue, this particular topic. And as he says in his own words, that he accepted it as truth because, when you eat a fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, how does it end up in Eve being pregnant unless it has something to do with sex and with, her being beguiled or wholly seduced, as the scriptures say.
Yeah, I think you answered all the questions just now.
Oh, really? Just in that one?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you guys, have any other questions or anything you'd like to ask me, of course, I'm always ready to share and cover that. But, I am long-winded, so just be aware. But anything else you guys want to go into and talk about before we come up to the hour break?
Jake?
Oh, I know in another area of your interests is the flat Earth topic, and another one of our users was wondering what's new in terms of the flat Earth movement topic. Has anything bubbled to your research that you would want to kind of share with us? I know. Just in my covering of the flat Earth topic, working on the "What If the Earth Is Flat" documentary, I know I covered in the film your whole court case proceedings and your victory in that scenario, and that to me was a huge thing. But I know with COVID and all the deceptions of the past 2 or 3 years, the flat Earth topic has kind of fallen by the wayside and made space for some much more pressing, prevalent conspiratorial topics. But in that realm, in that sense, is there anything that has caught your interest recently that has been put out that has got you thinking on the topic again?
Well, there are, every day there's new information that is coming out in regard to this topic, and that confirms, without a doubt, that curvature is non-existent, and that even the physics of water, that water cannot adhere to a ball or hold on to a sphere. That when you pour water onto a ball, it's just going to drip off. It has to be contained within a basin, and that when it will settle out in a horizontal level, and it will be flat to the horizon. But I think that David Wise, he does an excellent job of keeping this truth alive and present in the minds of everybody. And for those that don't have or don't support the flat Earth sun and moon clock and app that he has, it's an incredible app, and it shows exactly as I confirm in my 9th book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, that I show that what Enoch is being described and what he specifies for the motions of the luminaries. He describes their movement from east to west and then north to east. And when you understand these motions, it only makes sense that the luminaries are moving in circle around Polaris as the one fixed star of the celestial evening, and that I believe this is where the Most High has his throne room situated. That's why we have the altar in my house pointed towards the north. Um, but even the time lapse photography of the movement of the luminaries over the course of an evening, they show you that all the stars are moving at the same rate of speed. And in circle, some of the planets, the wandering stars are different in this respect. But the rest of the luminaries, they're all moving in circle around Polaris. And so this is another thing that confirms what we're talking about. And even the phenomena of the midnight sun, which only happens during the summer solstice, that you cannot, and as much as they claim that this occurs at the South Pole or the southern extremities of, the globe Earth, which we know that the Earth is not a globe because, again, curvature is non-existent. This is something that I argued for in court, and not that the judge was deciding on whether the Earth was flat or a globe. She was deciding on whether he had presented enough information to win the reward that I had put out. That if anybody out there could show and provide uh, two independent scientific experiments which could be repeated and verified by anybody else in the world, that either the Earth was moving in excess of just 50 miles an hour, not even, 1,037 miles an hour, which is what they claim, saying that the Earth is moving at a rate faster than the speed of sound or a bullet shot from a pistol. I mean, it's absolute lunacy. And they expect us to buy into and believe all that when, it's clear that when I walk outside on certain days, the flag outside of my house is not even moving. It's completely listless. And there's no motion, as the Bible tells us, that the earth is fixed, stationary, and non-moving. And this is confirmed, and that we are the foundation for the heavens, and that the luminaries, as Enoch says, are moving in circle above us. And so, this, it was only by accepting this premise that I was able to revisit the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries, which is something that, because I read all the extra biblical texts and have for years, and I continue to revisit them over and over until I can make sense of them or interpret them, come to discernment on them. But that book was something that always eluded me. And it wasn't until I embraced that the earth was indeed a plane, and that what Enoch was describing was looking down upon the earth as the backdrop. The circle of the earth was a backdrop like a clock's face for these motions, and that he was describing the movement from east to west and then back north to east, because this was a circle. And this is exactly what the sun does, that when it reaches the vanishing point in the western skies, it's not that it's setting below the horizon of the earth, and that the earth is spinning and moving around the sun. It's just that it reaches the vanishing point, is continuing moving northward, and is out of sight because we're no longer able to see it. But there have, and the Flat Earth Sun and Moon app, David Wise just recently had a video where a guy in an airplane was chasing the sun, And he was showing how that when the sun disappears, sets in the skies, and disappears from view, it's not that it's dipping below the horizon, but it's continuing its movement to the north. And so this individual chased it in his airplane for the longest time to show that this is exactly what was happening. And so if you had enough fuel to follow the sun and to chase it, you would see that it is indeed moving in this circular fashion. And that what we see in the morning of it returning in the east for sunrise is it making and completing this semicircle over the course of what is night to us, because having disappeared from our view, from our field of illumination and perspective, it doesn't return until the morning for sunrise. But it's just doing its thing. It's moving in a circle, and as Enoch describes, it's moving back and forth between the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. And so these things are being every day confirmed in many different ways. The people that are doing the infrared photography and are showing that you can see cityscapes, mountains, vistas, statues, things of that nature at hundreds of miles distant. This should not be possible. I mean, even what I talked about in the court case of how the Chicago skyline, the Joshua Nowicki taking a picture, and this is something that Rob confirmed as well when he went to Chicago, went to Lake Michigan and drove out across the lake toward Chicago to show that this was not a mirage, that you could see it from 60 miles distant, which should have been, a half a mile of curvature. You should only have been able to see the very tops of these buildings according to the formula for determining the rate of curvature of the Earth, should it be a globe, which is, 8 inches per mile inversely squared according to that distance. And so, I also talked about how the people in Oahu, from Kauai in the islands in the Pacific, they're able to see the island of Oahu from 100 miles distant, and that should be a full mile of curvature. You shouldn't even be able to see the tops of the other island. And this is these kind of things are everywhere found. People are seeing, cityscapes, statues, lighthouses at 30, 40, 60 miles distant, when that should not be a possibility according to what the scientists are teaching and what the people in the world are buying into, being brainwashed and indoctrinated into this whole system of belief. And so anybody that, disbelieves flat earth or thinks that we're morons or idiots or, whatever, they always call us all these negative connotations and all these negative names. All you have to do is go take a laser pointer and go 2 miles distant across a lake or a pond and measure to see if there's any curvature. And there is not. Curvature is non-existent because the Earth is not a sphere. And so anybody can do it. And if you think you're, all these astrophysicists like Danny Faulkner and people that debated Rob and myself, they are making fun of us, laughing at us, but it's so easy to debunk their whole belief system and to show that everything they believe is a lie.
Are you tired of living in constant pain? Do you feel like you've tried every CBD product on the market with no relief? Look no further than JJ's Natural CBD Rub. When I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, this was the only product that completely took my pain away. Working with JJ has been a dream come true, and his products have completely changed my life. Don't just take my word for it. Visit JJ's website, jjcbdrub.com, and read hundreds of testimonials from people whose lives have been changed by all of JJ's amazing products. And now, as a Skiba News Nation exclusive, you can get $50 off a 3-pack special of JJ's Natural CBD Rub by texting CBD to 920-382-7720. Don't suffer in silence any longer. Take control of your pain today with JJ's Natural CBD Rub. Again, text CBD to 920-382-7720 for an exclusive discount and start feeling the relief you deserve. The links are in the description below.
Did you know that a government-incentivized hospital protocol has led to the deaths of untold numbers of unsuspecting people? The Association of American Physicians and Surgeons noted, "We now see government-dictated medical care at its worst in our history, since the federal government mandated these ineffective and dangerous treatments, and then created financial incentives for hospitals and doctors to use only those approved and paid for approaches." The book, The Protocol That Kills, exposes the lethal regimen adopted by hospitals to maximize profits at the expense of patients' lives. This exhaustive expose provides a first-hand account of the protocol in action as it was invoked on an otherwise strong and healthy 52-year-old Rob Skiba, who was diagnosed with a viral infection by the admitting hospital. Within 40 days, this valiant Army veteran who had sworn to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, had fallen at the hands of a government-incentivized domestic enemy. This over 400-page true crime story uncovers every aspect of this lethal protocol in action, despite the protests of Rob Skiba and his wife. It includes disheartening text messages from Rob, who was locked away from his wife because she was forbidden to enter the hospital in the name of the protocol. Lawfully recorded detailed conversations his wife had with doctors, therapists, nurses, and hospital staff. Numerous pages extracted from the over 5,000-page hospital record that exposed the protocol that led to his tragic death. The testimony of a medical expert who provided his detailed analysis of the case. Invaluable and timely insights of a legal counsel who provides the story behind the story by providing crucial details and evidence, along with over 100 citations from clinical studies, medical journals, federal regulations, and relevant books and articles that prove Rob did not die of natural causes, but due to the perpetrator's insistence that he follow the mandated and inhumane protocol that kills. As Richard Bartlett, MD, says, this book shares a wealth of critical insights that will greatly aid in preventing future needless losses of life. The purpose of this book is to sound an alarm of a clear and present danger, as this lethal protocol is still being used against patients in hospitals all across America, and to provide you with essential insights that could help save your life or the life of someone you love. To be forewarned is to be forearmed. Get a copy today at theprotocolthatkills.com.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for a second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here on Revolution Radio. And I'm joined by my two good friends, Jeremiah Skiba and Jake Grant, and we're talking about the conference and all things esoteric, truth, and the journey to awakening. I will answer just a couple questions, and I'll turn it back over to you guys. What work accompanies Skyfall? Skyfall, for those that don't know, that's my 7th book, and it has to do with pre-existence, predestination, and it answers all those kind of questions, especially, like why Jacob was favored and Esau hated when they had not yet even been born as children. And how, a just, loving, compassionate God could even hate a child that had not yet been born. And all that has to do with the war in heaven, pre-existence, predestination, and the fact that we were known before we entered into the wombs of our mother. So that book accompanies these sons of God, who we are and why we are here, and that is my 6th book. And then the 8th book was the Aramaic Targum, which we released to everybody. Paper Bagman asks, how do you feel about all 3 of the books of Enoch? I personally think they are intriguing to read. Certainly the first book of Enoch I know to be inspired because, again, it has this information about the dynamics and the structure of the earth, which have been lost at least for the last 500 years since the embrace of heliocentrism. And so, as I show in that book, The Flat Earth as Key to Decrypt the Book of Enoch, you can only make sense of what Enoch is talking about if you understand that the earth is a fixed, non-moving, and stationary plane. And I really do like the book of the Secrets of Enoch as well. The 3rd book, the Hebrew manuscript with Rabbi Ishmael and Enoch and Metatron, that could be suspect in many ways. But, again, I think everybody should read before judging, and that there's intriguing information in a lot of manuscripts, unless they're like blatantly satanic, something like that. If you have discernment, I think you can learn from things, and that you should at least read them before judging them. And so, all right, that is the 2 questions that I see. Again, if you have any other questions, just highlight them in the chat room and I will bring them up. But let me go ahead and turn it back over to Jeremiah if you want to make a comment or anything, and then we'll go back and forth. We'll go to Jake thereafter.
On what exactly?
On anything you want to talk about.
I'll let Jake take over. He's normally good at this, and then I bounce off him.
All right, sounds good. All right, Jake, we'll go to you first, brother.
Well, you mentioned some about Enoch, and I'm always curious your perspective on this topic, Zen, because you are one of probably the few people who pour through so many extra biblical, pseudepigraphal, apocryphal texts, and of course, from the truth-seeking perspective, some of these esoteric texts can bubble up to the level of inspired scripture, while others can prove themselves to be tainted, have certain other interests have inserted their doctrinal stances or their misconceptions or their philosophies in these texts, and then we've received them in the modern age. But I was wondering, if you were to maybe boil down the texts in regards to eschatology and end times revelation that you view as the most inspired or most influential in your particular view of eschatology, like what to you is instrumental in having a more complete view of end times events, that in all the texts you've poured across, what to you is the most valuable? What would be your top 3 texts that people should look into?
That's a great question, and it's hard to limit it to just 3, because there's so much information out there, and there's so much that I think can be and is inspired, and certainly, for instance, the Great Commission 3, which is a book that we put together on the fig tree generation and about the end times, and it's specific to this question, and just answering, what is relevant for us to study about the end times besides the book of Revelation. And if you wanted to know more, about where we are, because Christ mentioned in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21 that know ye the parable of the fig tree, that this generation that sees the blooming of the fig tree will be the generation that sees the second coming of the Son of Man, and that prophecy would all be fulfilled. And it's my opinion, and this is one of the speeches that I gave in the first sacred word revealed on the end time mysteries, was what was the fig tree and what is the blooming of the fig tree. How do we know what that is, and how does it apply to us as, I believe, the last generation? And in my opinion, it has to do with the reappearance, the reemergence in a single day, in a single hour. Like, Zechariah, he asks, how can a nation be born when the Most High is revealing this in prophecy to him, that a nation would be born in a single hour, in a single day? And this has never happened ever in the history of humanity, that a nation is born in a single hour, in a single day, and that it is given, part of it, its capital city, which in this case is Jerusalem. And so, in my opinion, the nation of Israel, the nation state of it, and even though I know, yes, the United Nations and the plan of the New World Order was to create Israel as a wedge to drive and to create two factions, that they would send these factions, the extreme Zionists and also the extreme Muslims and also the Christians, to divide them and to set them at war against one another. That we have a prophecy that Jerusalem would be made a cup of trembling amongst the nations. That this is exactly what happened. But even with their focus and their efforts, that this was something that the Most High allowed for, and that he wrote about it, and it was prophetically within the word. And so, in regard to the end time mysteries, I'm going to just say that it's a whole book that we put together called the Great Commission 3. And there's books like, the Book of Enoch, of course, and Second Esdras. Those are two of my most favorite texts. There's another one called the Revelation of St. John the Theologian, which is a companion text to the book of Revelation within our Bible. And it is part of this, again, this Great Commission 3 that we put together. And I just want to share, because a lot of people are not familiar with this book, and this is a great question. This is actually the thing that I think that most people should be studying and applying themselves to understanding prophecy, because prophecy is so important. It confirms the inspired nature of the scriptures and the inerrancy of the word, and why we can believe it and why we can trust it as the word of the Most High God. And that this is something that was revealed by our Maker to the prophets as a message to us about what is coming and how to understand the end from the beginning. And so, in this book, I'm just going to name some of these apocalyptic texts, because I believe these are the texts that people should study when you want to understand prophecy and come to understand what Revelation is talking about and how to make sense of it. And in the Great Commission 3, which are the end time apocalypses, we have the apocalypse of Abraham, the apocalypse of Moses, the 14th vision of Daniel, the apocalypse of Elijah, the Hebrew apocalypse of Elijah, the 4th book of Ezra, the apocalypse of Shadrach, the sibling oracles, book 2, the apocalypse of Zephaniah, the apocalypse of Baruch, the apocalypse of Thomas, the apocalypse of Peter, the first and second apocalypse of James, the apocalypse of Paul, the revelation of St. John the Theologian, the 10 signs of the end of the world, the apocalypse of Samuel, the apocalypse of Zerubbabel, and the vision of Adaman. And it's my opinion that when you read and you study all of these manuscripts, you will know what the blooming of the fig tree is and how it applies to even what Enoch describes in the first book of Enoch, when he said that he's writing for a remote and distant generation, and that, he reveals about the return of the Messiah, the Son of Man, because Enoch is prophetic. It's a messianic text and shows to us and documents how the Messiah, that he's coming to save us at the end of the days, that it's not going to be some new age or the fallen angels or the return of the great white brotherhood or the Anunnaki, as the world will be deceived into believing, and that so many are going to be set up to take the mark of the beast as a testament of their belief system, that so many people are going to be buying into, that the ancient aliens created us and that they're returning to save us. But there's only one true Messiah, and he said in John that he goes now to prepare a place for us, and that he will return again, that he's coming again at the end of, when he comes again, that the harvest will ensue, and that the wheat and the tares shall be separated, the goat and the sheep. And so at that time, the bloodlines, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, they will be finally separated and revealed. And again, this knowledge and this teaching, it also helps us to understand why it is that all the presidents and prime ministers and royal families are blood related, and that they are all linked and connected to each other in bloodline. And so when you understand that, you will be able to make sense of why it is that Christ said within the scriptures, he said that your fathers are the murderers of the prophets, the assassins of the prophets, that they killed even Abel to Zacharias. And we know that, again, Cain murdered Abel, his half brother. And because of that, we know that the murderers of the prophets are linked to Cain, that they are the bloodline of the serpent. And so, they are a brood of vipers, a den of, the seed of the evildoers, the children of perdition. And so, it's hard for me to just narrow it down to three, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I picked up that book. I think Justin was kind enough to send me home with a copy of the Great Commission.
Oh, good.
Several years ago, and I was really interested in some of the perspectives there. I'm always curious about where we get the texts that we have today, because really we have this amazing tool called the internet that has allowed us to gain access to these obscure documents that in the past you had to be an indoctored seminary student who could speak multiple languages, and you had to find the dusty book in some library somewhere. And it's amazing what we have access today. So I'm always curious on that topic, what boils to the surface for other people. And I know maybe we can discuss a little bit about before Rob passed away, you and he were going through the book of Enoch, and also did your study of Genesis. And I was curious, maybe you could share, were there any moments during those studies that really stood out to you as new like inspirational, revelation, anything that you guys were studying that really was a fond memory or a moment that you guys had while studying through those books that sticks with you till today?
Certainly. I mean, many. I mean, it was like almost every show when we came together, there was some kind of aha moment or some kind of mind-blowing, some kind of revelation that came forth in the back and forth banter that we did in reading the number of manuscripts that we included when doing this parallel study. Like for instance, he would read the King James Genesis, whatever chapter, whatever verse. I would share the Targum, and then we would also go through Jasher and Jubilee and a book called The Writings of Abraham, and numbers of manuscripts, the Legends of the Jews. We incorporated everything in that study, and it was exhaustive and extensive, and it was something that, because not a lot of people are open to extra biblical texts, they were unfamiliar with so many of the stories that he and I were sharing, and so the those that gathered to listen to us, they were absolutely mind blown. But I remember specifically because, he and I had done a number of shows about the Book of Enoch and about the courses on the heavenly luminaries, and I told him numerous times over and over about how it was only when you understand that the earth is a fixed, non-moving, stationary plane that you can make sense of what Enoch was talking about. And so I showed him over and over in diagram, and even in the way with the flat earth, the sun and the moon app, it shows and even the way that he was able to use the solarium to depict the movement of the sun and the moon as it circles around Polaris, over the course of a year, and how it comes together, and when they coincide, that we have these incredible eclipse moments. But he still did not understand what I was talking about when I said it moves from east to west and then north to east. It just didn't click for him. And then finally, when we did the Book of Enoch study, it all snapped in, and he was able to make sense of, oh, yeah, that's a circle. That's exactly what we see in the time-lapse photography of the stars and the star trails as they move over the course of the evening. This is exactly what we see with the phenomena of the midnight sun on the summer solstice for 3 full days, that the sun will remain above the horizon, circling from east to west and then north and back to east in a circle. And so when it was like a light bulb moment for him when he finally got it, even though I had told him about it numerous times, it just didn't click until it did. And when it did, it was it was profound for him. And so that was one of the spectacular moments. And then another one that I'll just share really quickly is when we were going through the book of Genesis, chapter by chapter, verse by verse. And again, we were incorporating the study of the King James, the Aramaic Targum, Jasher and Jubilees, and everything, the writings of Abraham, and going through and getting to where we got to the punishments, and how Adam and Eve, when they ate this fruit, again, they hid their genitals. And then the punishments, because they were prophetic. What Yahuwah had said to the seed of the woman, and as far as to Satan, the serpent, he said, I will put enmity between thee and the woman. This was going to be prophetic, that there's going to be a war, and that it would begin with Abel, because Cain, who was of the wicked one, he would kill his half-brother. That even though God went to him and said, if you just do well, I will accept you. But then, he lied. Am I my brother's keeper? And he had murdered his brother and covered it up and then lied about it. And so, he was just like his father, the devil. And so that was the beginning. That was the prophecy, the beginning of the war between the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, which enmity means extreme hatred. And it would also be fulfilled in the Messiah dying on the cross. And this is another part of the prophecy that most people don't understand, that the seed of the serpent nipping at his heel, that when the Messiah was crucified on the cross, we know that 900 years earlier, David had heard the challenge of Goliath in mocking the nation of Israel, that Saul and all of his men of war and his lieutenants, that they sat listening to Goliath for 40 days, mocking them, challenging them, that if you would just come, we don't have to fight nation to nation. We'll just bring your champion and I'll fight against him. And David had a dream, and this is something that most people don't know about either. But David had a dream where he would uh, be called to fight against. He first saw, and he killed the lion and the bear and so on and so forth. But he was stood up for this challenge, and he knew that when he heard Goliath mocking his God, that this was the moment that he was being called to stand up for the Most High, and he did so. And that's when he took the five, because Goliath had four brothers, and so he picked up the 5 stones in case he needed to slew the brothers if they got involved. And so he knocked Goliath out, and then took his sword and cut his head off with it, and took his skull as a trophy, took it back to Jerusalem, showed it to all the people that indeed he had killed the Philistine champion, and that they no longer would have to worry about the Philistines because they were now subservient to Israel. And then after, I guess, whenever it began to smell or worms or whatever, he buried it there at a place called Golgotha, which Golgotha means Goliath of Gath. And even the word Calvary means skull, the hill of the skull. So the place where he buried Goliath's skull, which he being a giant was without a doubt serpent seed, is also the place that the Messiah would be 900 to 1,000 years later, crucified on the cross. And so that moment where he was crucified and resurrected, he indeed fulfilled the prophecy of Genesis 3:15, in that he was crushing the head of the serpent seed at the same time that it was nipping at his heel. And so, again, when you look at in Luke chapter 3, Cain is excluded from the lineage of Messiah, and he's not found there. It even says that Enoch was the 7th from Adam, and again, Cain is not found in his genealogy. And there's 3 confirming witnesses to this, and I share this in a book called The Ancient Prophecies of Christ, that there's also the genealogy of the Messiah listed in a book called The Cave of Treasures, as well as the book of the Bee. And again, and it was because this contention that they were trying to delude the generations of the Messiah, and to share that he was not who he said he was going to be, but he was. And so these things confirmed, and the genealogy and the record of it is very important for not only tracking down the bloodline of Cain, but also the bloodline of the woman. And so, yeah, that's and Rob, this also, when we did the study of the serpent seed in Genesis, that's really when it hit home for him as well, because it confirms this in the legends of the Jew, especially in the Aramaic Targum, where it speaks about Hava having desired the angel, and that then she received a man from the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord was Samael, the angel of death, the viper of God, that seduced her, beguiled her, impregnated her with Cain. And it says, again in 1 John chapter 3, verse 12, that Cain is of the wicked one. That word "of," it means son of, descendant of, child of the wicked one. And so Again, confirming witness to the wheat and the tares of the enemy that snuck into the garden, sowed the tares, and that the enemy is the devil, and he is the father of the tares. So, two aha moments that came up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I've been listening through the audiobooks of the Legends of the Jews myself, and it's really interesting because there's so many parallel accounts that you see in the Targums and in the Book of Jasher, and
Right.
part of me
Right.
wonders if these segments from Jasher or the Targums weren't include, or like how much the Legends of the Jews is drawing from those texts, because I haven't made it to the appendix, I guess, where it shows what text they're drawing the various legends from. I'm sure there might be some crossover there, but some really interesting tales that get into some really stories I'd never heard before,
Right.
and really really interesting.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to consider this other information. And like some of my most favorite books are those big compendiums that have huge collections of footnotes. And I'll give you three other examples. There's a book called the Perk de Rabbi Eleazar, which Perk just means book. And Rabbi Eleazar, he was the high priest during the time of the Messiah. His life is written about in Maccabees chapter 4, because he was Antiochus Epiphanes. When he went there, he tried to make him and his family to eat swine that was sacrificed unto idols, and he refused to do it. And because of that, the Antiochus Epiphanes tortured him and his wife and his 7 sons, and they stood fast in the faith, and he encouraged them to not bow down and not to bend the knee, because Antiochus Epiphanes said he would even give them half of his kingdom if they would just do this deed. But anyway, so he was the high priest. Eleazar Hyrcanus is his name, and this book that he wrote has all these stories, all these biblical stories, and it has all these footnotes included in it that confirm, things like where the Legends of the Jews got some of its information, and it dates back to the 1st century, to the time of the Messiah, because he was a contemporary. And another one is called the Assatir, the secret book of Moses. And another one is called the Legends of the Patriarchs and the Prophets. And those 3 books have hundreds, if not thousands, of footnotes, and speaks about even a text that we no longer have today, and shares commentary and quotes and things that are just very intriguing, because it confirms a lot of information that we're no longer privy to. But when you start to dig into these ancient manuscripts and these ancient texts, and how you had mentioned how it's important to know the origin. Well, I think it is important to understand the origins of where certain books come, but I also believe that, as it says in the scriptures, that the lying pen of the scribes, how it altered, like they removed the word of the Lord from the English and the Greek translations, and how you can find allusion to the word of the Lord in the Targum over 200 times in the first 5 books of the Pentateuch alone. And yet in the English King James Version, we only have 11 translations that, specify and are connected to the word of the Lord. And when you read the restored version, you see that Messiah had been involved, before Abraham was, I am. How he was involved even with Adam and Eve, that he was there, and he was the one that banished them, removed them from paradise, and told them that 5,500 years after your banishment, I'm going to be born of your bloodline. I'm going to be immaculately conceived, Emmanuel, God with us, those kind of things. And so when you don't read the Targum and have familiarity with it, you miss all of that information. And there's so many prophecies of his coming, just like with the book of Enoch on the Son of Man, and how it's a messianic text. And so I think, in my opinion, I don't trust like Wikipedia and where it says that certain texts are from, because clearly, in my mind, they will tell you that the book of Enoch was written by some later scribe, and they always try to date it to after the time of the Messiah, like the 2nd century CE, or something of that nature. But then the Dead Sea Scrolls came out, and it confirmed that indeed the book of Enoch speaks about the Messiah, the Son of Man, and this was 200 years before his birth. And it goes back even further, because I believe the book of Enoch is attributed to Enoch and was carried over on the ark by Noah. And of course, they're not going to tell you these things. They always try to date manuscripts to, especially if they're prophetic, they try to date them to after the so-called, time of the Messiah, and when the prophecies were actually fulfilled and revealed. And so I don't trust a lot of what they say in regard to the origins. And I think it's more important to read the manuscripts and to study and to see what they say before judging them or considering them, because a lot of people will judge them. The mainstream opinion of Christianity is that you should read nothing outside of the 66 books of the King James. And this, is not even the Apocrypha. That's not even the full manuscript of the King James. They exclude all of the apocryphal texts, which clearly show that the Holy Spirit wisdom is the female aspect of the Godhead. And so this is another truth which I've been so largely condemned and judged for. But without a doubt, it is truth, as I, have shared it. Now I've written 2 books about it, and I just actually, for the listening audience, I just finished the 2nd book and will be releasing it this week. So you'll be able to get it. You can pre-order it on our website at sacredwordpublishing.com, and we will be fulfilling these orders, within a week's time, because I had a chance to proofread it. I am going to release it, and it's going to blow people's minds. But those are just some of the things, so.
Yeah. In another topic, I know Jeremiah, maybe you can share some of your thoughts, and then we can ask Zen kind of his perspective. But in recent weeks, Jeremiah, maybe you can chime in here on what your thoughts are. I mean, I've been seeing so many alien disclosure red flags and news stories. What are your thoughts, Jeremiah? And then maybe we can throw it over to Zen and see if he has any thoughts on that topic.
I mean, I think it's just a big cover up, kind of like they're trying to distract us from what's really going on. And I don't know if you guys have seen that story where an alleged UFO crashed in somebody's backyard. There's like brain footage of it.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's like, where is that footage? I want to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you, brother. I think there is a big cover up, but in the same sense, there is disclosure happening. Now you have, like, even NASA just came out with a 4-hour lecture broadcast, open public press conference on the unidentified aerial phenomena. And they went through this. They had a huge panel of all these PhD scientists and astrophysicists, and, the Neoteric priests of Baal, all of those. But they are starting to set, again, the platform of bringing truth and of qualifying this information. But that story was absolutely mind-blowing. And for people that don't know what we're talking about, just 4 days ago, there was an event in Las Vegas where a craft is seen, or some kind of light is seen descending out of the skies. And even the police themselves reported seeing this occurrence. And then there's this Ring video that captures this huge light like the whole sky in the city is just all of a sudden illuminated, and then you hear this crash, and then you have this individual and his family. They call 911, and they're reporting that they are staring at and looking at two beings that are grayish and greenish in color, and that are 8 to 10 feet tall, that are in their backyard. And that when they, another intriguing thing about it is that they said that when they tried to look at the craft, it was as if it was camouflage and that it was blurry. That, because the U.S. military also has this technology where they're able to bend light that you don't see a soldier. It's much like the Predator, that whole movie, The Predator, when it's moving through, and it has that camouflage device activated. It blends in. You can only see resonance, some kind of weirdness to the light spectrum. But anyways, they reported that, and the police officers went out there and talked about that. But it seems that this UAP phenomena is happening everywhere. And with so many cameras, so many people with, iPhones and things of that nature. And a lot in the third world, they still don't have the high grade cell phones. And so the footage is a lot times grainy and, not as clear, but certainly this is happening everywhere. And the information is not going to be stopped. But yeah, Jake, you want to comment, brother?
Yeah, I mean, not only was the Las Vegas story really interesting, you have the supposed leaker who worked for the intelligence community recently came out, and I was surprised. Jeremiah and I, in our coverage of it 2 weeks ago, we sensed something big was about to start dropping on the public, because I had noticed that on my feeds there was a lot of kind of alien propaganda stuff, a lot of videos talking about guys like Logan Paul having stolen the best UFO footage ever. And it wasn't that I thought that particular story was a big story. I think it was just the fact that I've noticed he seems to sniff out these viral topics before they come into the mainstream headlines. And so he rides these waves, and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm getting a lot of this material, this content, it means something else is about to come out. And so just 1 week later, we had the intelligence agency guy came out, and Tucker Carlson, guys like that reporting on it, saying it's the most it's the biggest headline that's come out in recent years on the topic. So yes, we had the Vegas, but we also had this intelligence leak type thing. And all these things are interesting. And of course, I've over the years have a very similar view to what Jeremiah's dad had, which was, I think, aliens and UFOs are supernatural in origin. They're either spiritual beings or they're some type of terrestrial high technology that we aren't aware that exists. But whether it's demons or whether it's a U.S. secret programs officer that crashed their experimental vehicle, I definitely think it's really interesting all of this is happening now. I think we've been set up for alien disclosure in a kind of an exponential way, especially since 2019, when they had a lot of those UAP documents released, and there was that whole viral topic of the Storm Area 51 event. I don't know if you guys remember that.
Yes.
You remember that, Jeremiah?
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah. And the concert that was supposed to take place.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they had all kinds of people doing the Naruto run out there and stuff, but people don't realize that event, in a way, was a distraction, because 1 week later, while everybody was covering the Storm Area 51 event, you had the release of all these documents from the Air Force confirming that there are UAPs out there. They don't know what they are. They've tracked them with multiple, measurement devices, and it's we're getting closer and closer to all this disclosure type stuff, and I'm always curious. I really think it's to set us up for a deception regarding the sign of the Son of Man that might appear in the sky. Like they see perhaps New Jerusalem show up in the heavens, and they say it's the mothership, and they sway the world to stand against the second coming of the Messiah, and they call it the alien invasion. Or, of course, before that, it could be used for a grand deception that could really sway people of faith away from the faith of the ancients and to some kind of newfangled thing, whether it's rejecting God outright and believing in the whole atheistic alien overlords nonsense, or whatever agenda they're going to push with it. But yeah, that's why I was curious, Zen, your perspective, because we definitely see it ramping up.
Well, I do absolutely agree with you, and I agree with Rob that this is fallen angelic and demonic activity, but I do agree that there is an aspect to it that is militarized, and that is government operations ongoing. And Sheila was talking about in the chat room that it's cloaking technology, that they're able to cloak and to hide, and I do agree with that. But in regard to the agenda, and because I do believe that this again is part of what the Bible calls the strong delusion, and that is going to be and is the whole theme that the Ancient Aliens is pushing, that the Anunnaki created us, and that we were made in their image, and that they're going to come for the new age, to the golden age, to save us from ourselves, and to also restore, as far as all the beauty of what was the ancient world and those times and to this age. And I think that as far as Hollywood and what we are being told, there was a sci-fi miniseries called Childhood's End. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but in it shows that there's these overlords, and they come and they're behind the scenes. They have these human emissaries. They're working with the United Nations, and they start to cure all these illnesses and disease. They end war. They end starvation. They're able to feed everybody, and they're doing all this from behind the scenes. And for 50 years, they remain hidden, and they don't present themselves. And all the people are acclimated to the overlords and how they're beneficent, and that they are these so-called gods, and that they are closer to as the Vatican says, that the aliens are closer to the Most High than we are, and that we should trust them and believe them. But anyway, so 50 years later, this overlord comes onto the American screen, or to the worldwide audience. It reveals himself. He's walking out holding the hand of a little girl and the hand of a little boy, and it's the devil incarnate with horns and pointed tail and all that, completely red, looking just like Satan of the Bible, and walks out. And by now everybody's acclimated, and they are ready to bend the knee and accept him as their God and their maker. And this is, I believe, exactly what the elites are setting up. That even Carolyn Rosen, she warned us that Werner von Braun, when she was working for him, this was the agenda that that he revealed, and talked about how they would use the presence of aliens and also the threat from afar to unite the world, and to get everybody to buy into the whole thing, that they created us and that they are our gods, which of course we know that to be absolutely false, or I would hope that people know that to be false. But Jeremiah, would you care to comment?
Well, it's crazy how the media kind of tells us what's going to happen, like with the train wreck in Ohio. There was a movie in,
Right.
I think a year before that, in the same exact city that happened in, and it was about a train crash.
Right.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh, they just warned us about this.
Yes.
Or they didn't warn us, they were just kind of, maybe telling us without telling us.
Hmm. Yeah, even the oil leak in the Gulf. There was a book about that, and even the Barron Trump. I don't know if you guys heard about all that too, and how supposedly Trump's father or grandfather was connected to Nikola Tesla.
Was his uncle.
His uncle, yeah. You probably know the story better than me, but how all of that, I mean, things been written, hundreds of years in advance, and how now it's all coming to light, the last president or whatever the books. If you know more, can you talk about that, Jeremiah?
About the Barron Trump
Yeah,
or
Barron
the
Trump.
Trump family?
Yeah, and the Trump family. Yeah, anything that you'd
Well,
like to.
Well, I mean, what I know about Tesla and the Trumps was that when Nikola Tesla died, everybody wanted the files that he had or the writings that he had because
Right.
he had something that they wanted. So they watched him and watched him and watched him. And then when he finally died, allegedly, Trump's uncle got some of those documents and they don't know where those are, which is pretty interesting. And I know some people think that Barron Trump is like a time traveler,
Uh-huh.
but I don't know about that. I
Right.
haven't looked really much into that.
Well, it's
But it could
certainly
be.
intriguing, the whole story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
agreed. Jake, do you want to comment, brother?
Oh yeah, I mean, with even the UFO technology topic, I know a lot of that research Tesla did with vibration and frequency could be translated to certain devices and stuff, and I know Bob Lazar, the renowned UFO kind of conspiracy guy that worked allegedly on some of this UFO technology. He's been going around for decades telling people that it exists. He worked on it. He worked on it for several months and then got outed because he was obviously trying to share some of the information. And now he's kind of vindicated looking back
Right.
when you see all this news coming out now. And so it makes you wonder what technology they have their hands on. And of course, it's all speculation on our part, but the level of sophistication that the military's technology could be at in today's world is just enormous. I mean, like the amount of advancements that they've made, and I mean, I know looking at what's going on overseas, we're kind of watching through kind of the proxy war with Ukraine and Russia. We're seeing the West use some of their technology there, and that's one of the motivations between that war. But it just kind of makes me wonder what technologies are being rolled out against people, and are these the giants that are to be overcome in the end days? It's this
Right.
technology. It's more or less the technology of the fallen ones that we have to pretty much depend wholly on the Most High to protect us from the evil
Right. Yes.
that have their hands on this technology, and supernaturally He'll deliver us and deliver these giants that the evil ones are using this technology, and I'm using that giant metaphor because you had the Israelites were scared out of their britches
Right.
looking at going into the promised land, and they had giants that were making them look like grasshoppers, and I know that today the elect and those truther types and the people that are coming out of Babylon, we have a lot more levied against us in terms of technology, and the battle does seem almost kind of hopeless. But I think that's kind of where you can boil it down to why we also implement the faith aspect to our whole news show, and and we tried to talk about the most important things, which are, we have to be right with our Creator. We have to be, seeking after His will and let His Spirit guide us, because with all these things that are happening on the earth and all these deceptions, whether it be the alien topic that we're talking about now, or the deceptions with pharmakia and the medical industry, or whatever, it's more important than ever to get that, have that help of the Spirit to help us navigate all these topics. And I know you were talking about that earlier, the importance of our faith walk, and it really is that grounding stone, that thing that we can stand on and have a hope for the future despite all these things, these confusing and oftentimes scary topics, right? It's a good foundation to remind ourselves of, and then we try to do that with Skiba News Nation. We try to encourage our viewers in that area as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, we have arrived to the end of the show, but I just want to thank both of you for joining us, and Sheila in the chat. We greatly appreciate all of you, and we will continue to pray for and ask people to support all of you. And I would also remind people that, the wars, and the guy that came forward with a disclosure, he said that the governments are trying to actively shoot down and to retrieve these kind of technologies, and that even the war in Iraq was to gain access to Gilgamesh's tomb, that they are looking to get the DNA of these so-called giants of old. And we are reminded by the Messiah, as in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the second coming of the Son of Man. So this is part of that whole strong delusion agenda. And even Russia going into Crimea, there was a discovery of some of the most ancient pyramids in that area. And, that these kind of things, gaining access to these technologies, that wars are being started over, and that this is incognito, the undercover agenda of a lot of the elites and a lot of the governments of the world, is to gain access to this ancient knowledge and lost technology. And so we're living in interesting times. But we appreciate all of you, and thank you, those of you that are in the chat, for joining us as always. And we'll definitely have to do it again sometime. It was a good
Absolutely.
show. Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for having us on the show. I mean, we consider you family, so thank you so much.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Thank you, Zen.
Yeah, we are family, man. I mean, all that came out, Rob, and your last name being Garcia. I mean, that's before he adopted you. It's so crazy. But love you guys, and love all of you. Love you, Sheila. Be blessed all. Good night.
If you would like to submit a story, topic, or have any other inquiries, please email submit@SkeebaNewsNation.com. Also, you can email Jeremiah Skiba personally at jeremiah@SkeebaNewsNation.com. Also, email Jake personally at jake@SkeebaNewsNation.com. If you want to write us a letter, send us something, help support us, or just say hi, please send your letter to Jeremiah Skiba, P.O. Box 560-271, The Colony, Texas 75056. If you write us a letter, I'll do my best to write you back. Hey, Skiba News Nation family, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you never miss an episode of Skiba News Nation. If you want to help support us, please consider becoming a Patreon, where you will get exclusive content, shoutouts, and much more. And you can also support our channel by getting yourself some new Skiba News Nation merch. Thank you for coming on this journey with us as we continue to stay on the quest for truth. Huge shout out to all our Patreon supporters. Thank you so much for your support. We couldn't do this show without you. If you want to help support us, go to patreon.com/Skiba News Nation. Also, you can listen to Skiba News Nation podcast on your favorite podcast platform.